Howdy, folks. Thank you for coming to the book expo. I have the pleasure of introducing one of the many personas of Drake, Shepard. Mr. Shepard has performed a number of historical characters and brought them to life, including Teddy Roosevelt, Thomas Edison, Frank Lloyd Wright, among others. For the next hour, you'll have the privilege of being in the presence of the ultimate Renaissance man, Leonardo da Vinci, a painter, a scientist, inventor, and entomatist whose boundless curiosity was only exceeded by his artistic genius. So I leave you with Leonardo da Vinci.
Lisa, I know you just had a root canal and it's difficult to smile. So why don't you give me a half smile, something that's mysterious, sensuous, and sphinx-like. Thank you. Now please stay that way a while I talk to these kind people that have decided to see us. Hi, I'm Leonardo, Sir da Vinci. I have come from the past. My spirit has come alive to tell you about my life and my many accomplishments in art, architectural, and analytical. Can you hear me okay? And analytical designs, also mechanical engineering, painting, sculpting, drafting, math, and civil and military engineering designs. Many people think I am the embodiment and the perfect example of the ideal Renaissance man, in that I was the embodiment of a new wave of thinking, a new resurgence of thinking in the late 500 years ago in northern Italy. I was born out of wedlock on April 15th, 1452 in Ancione, Tuscany, close to Vinci, 18 miles from Florence. My dad, Sir Piero, was a attorney, landlord, and notary. My mom, Katrina, was a peasant girl. Can I have the lights down a little bit? I'm sorry. I have to interrupt this. I never wanted it this high. Is that better?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Katrina, she was a peasant girl. My parents never married. So later on, my mom would marry an artist. My dad would marry 4 times. So I was raised by my dad and my stepmom on my dad's family estate for 5 years, until Uncle Francesco took me to his place in Vinci, and there I lived alongside my 9 half-brothers and 3 half-sisters for 10 years, and was considered a legitimate child. There I picked up a lot of social skills that would make me very amiable and agreeable to be with. This is where I grew up, visited today, and at a young age, I painted a shield and decorated with dead animal parts. It smelled, but people liked it. And I had the typical education of the day, and at age 15, showing some talent in art, I was apprenticed to leading Florentine painter Andrea del Verrocchio. And with him, I was a garzon, or a studio boy. I helped my master paint background scenery and minor characters in my master's paintings. And in a studio, I worked with others and learned a lot of trade secrets, like proportions, mechanical and technical skills, drafting, sketching, drawing, all the arts along with others. I made my first painting at age 20, the Annunciation, which shows my trademark style. It goes in a circular way with a hazy background, with rectangles here, with strong geometric shapes, as well. This was by my mom, actually. At age 20, in 1472, the same age, I was accepted into the Guild of St. Luke's for doctors and artists to learn a trade, to be part of a profession. And in 1475, when I was 23, I helped my master paint the baptism of Christ at this angel to the left here. My master, so the myth goes, was so impressed by this and so humbled, he put down his paintbrush never to paint again. However, I declined guild membership and instead became an independent master, working on technical mechanical skills and other arts in my master's workshop. I was independent. I got my first commission at age 29 in 1481 for the Church of San Donato in Florence for the Adoration of the Magi, a large 8-foot wood panel they wanted me to paint. And I got this sketch done. You can see the strong rectangular shapes. You see all the lines and all that, how I set it up? And I got halfway done with it, but I didn't complete it. So is incomplete art finished? No, it's just incomplete. It's not art, really. And this is what I had a problem in my life about actually finishing things because of my procrastination, deterioration of walls, and for murals, wars, regime changes, and in this case, I wanted to work for him, the Duke of Milan, Ludovico Sforza, in 1482 when I was 30. He was up in Milan and I wanted him to be my patron. Actually, Sforza was a strong man as he had a fiefdom and he needed a military engineer. He wanted to have control of his area. So I sent him a resume. I could make portable bridges, have special vehicles for assault, have cannons, and could tunnel underneath castle walls. It worked, and I was with him then and accepted into his Castello Sforzesco, which you can visit today in Milan. It's a walled fortress where a couple hundred of us were there. On the outskirts of this were places where you could farm and blacksmith shops, cloth makers, wheelwrights, people, tanneries, people working with horses. There were warring city-states at the time. That's why this was an enclave like this. Actually, I was entranced by Sforza's court as he was patron to many other sophisticated people and artists of the time. In the Royal Register of the Household, I was listed as an engineer and a painter as he was my patron. And I was also in charge of medieval festivals that he would have, these court festivals. I was in charge of making costumes and developing scenery, kind of like the man behind the scene, glad-handing people, making sure things went right like a master of ceremonies. And I was highly esteemed. I was not a threat because I didn't hit up on the women of the court. And I was more like an entertainer. And for the wedding of Gian Sforza and Isabella at the Feast of Paradise, I made this automata called the Mask of the Planets, where if you twirl this clockwise, this wand, all the planets would revolve around Earth, which was our known universe at the time, or a geocentric view of it. I also, a larger version would be like this. I also made this self-propelled cart. Actually, a boy would sit on this cart from behind a curtain. And when that happened, we would wind up the gears, and the cart would come out on its own, and the boy would steer it with this, come out about 10 or 12 yards, all to the delight of the people in the court. And the potential energy became kinetic energy because of these gears. I'd also show people models of what I was doing in the court, and they were all fascinated by it. I was like the Merlin of the court. And people just loved what I had to say and do. I was with him for 17 years, and I had made 6 paintings. One of them was a Virgin of the Rocks, which goes again in a circular fashion. This is the Virgin Mary highlighting her baby son, Jesus, who's blessing baby St. John the Baptist. And one of my trademark signatures on this was something popular during the day. It was called sfumato, which is the blending of a dark, hazy background in the background with her hair. See, I believe in Kingdom Come, and all the colors bleed into one. Let me show you more about sfumato with my portrait of Leonardo da Vinci. The hair goes into the background where the foreground is highlighted, but the background isn't. This gives it a moody, ethereal quality to the painting, and this was popular at the time. Sfumato fum in Latin means smoke or haze. And also velatura, which is a glazing technique in a painting where a thin, transparent layer of paint is applied over a dry layer. It highlights the figures. You can also do this on walls. It's very much like a veneer. And this is me. In 1482, when I was 30, the Sforza clan wanted me to create the world's largest equestrian statue made of bronze in honor of their founding father, Francesco Sforza. And I had the idea of the horse being rearing up on its back legs with its front hoofs in the air. And I would study horses. Here's my drawings of them with thick necks and muscles. And I made a 16-foot clay model of this. And it was displayed in a model as a wedding for Emperor Maximilian. However, the model for this was, actually the bronze for this was repurposed to make cannons and not used, and it was, the model was destroyed in a war. So again, an unfinished project, but the city of Milan picked it up and took it from my drawings, as you can see, and now it's a tourist attraction. They made it for me. I wanted to tell you about the Italian peninsula when I was alive. There was a lot of warring states. There are 200 distinct kingdoms there, and they're all warring with each other. This would go on for the next 350 years, until 1860, when Garibaldi unified Italy under a bloody civil war. Since then, Italy's had many different kinds of governments, and because of that, it's considered a weak power because they didn't get their act together for the longest time. In 1489, I painted a portrait of my Sforza's mistress, Cecilia Gallerini. It's called Lady with an Ermine. And this shows a couple characteristics of what I would do. She's a 3/4 turn to us, but her head is turned to the right and her body is turned to the left, which shows movement. Also, this is chiaroscuro, strong contrast of light to create depth. And her eyes are fixated on Sforza, which shows loyalty. And I captured her beauty and natural way of being in a subtle, graceful way, as you can see. Polish princess owned this painting in the past, and 220 years ago, and painted it black, which is why it's this way. People also don't know that I also painted, well, Ermine with an Ermine, dogs playing poker, and a velvet Elvis. I made my masterpiece, The Last Supper, from 1495 to 1498 in the Dominican monastery dining room of Santa Maria delle Grazie in Milan. And these are my drawings for it, the sketches for it, which shows the disciples. But it was a popular painting at the day. Having this kind of painting was popular because nuns and priests would like to eat in front of a replica of something like this going on. So it was a very good thing to have in those days for these kind of monasteries. These are my sketches for it, and the layout of it is that we put at least 50 rectangles in this, because it's all math. And instead of painting it in fresco style, which means painting it on fresh plaster that's wet, I waited till the plaster, waited till the plaster dried, so I could take my time making the painting rather than doing it while it's wet. It's called a fresco secco when it's dry, and I use an organic binder for my pigments. The Last Supper is 15 feet by 29, and it's in a triangle short shaped way, along with a light sfumato in the background. And I put a nail in the center and put strings here to make basically all lines, all points go to a vanishing point. It's a linear perspective drawing. It comes in like a focus right toward you. I also made always a horizontal line in terms of these disciples' heads are all on the same line except one, which is Judas, which is the one that betrays him. So it's called a linear perspective drawing. And it also concerns the golden ratio. That means with the length, height, and width of not only the painting, but the people in the painting, that there's a relationship between the art and math. For the math, I use the Fibonacci sequence. Then I combined it right in. That means 3 and 5 is 8. 8 divided by 5 is 1.6. 8 and 5 is 13. 13 divided by 8 is 1.6. These proportions are the most pleasing to the eyes because there's a proportion in art with the golden ratio. You will see the exact same proportions if you go to the Parthenon in Athens, in Greece, and right down to the millimeter. It was perfect. That's why it looks so good, and that's why it's considered the world's greatest building. So, there's so much math into it. You can put 9 distinct rectangles in this, matching ones, or receding ones, at least 10 of them in the background, like this. So what is going on with this painting? Why is it a big deal for it? Well, In the center, there's Jesus along with his disciples here. And this concerns betrayal. How this was done. And where Jesus tells his disciples, one of you will betray me. You can find this in Matthew 26:21 or 3 other Gospels where this occurs. As well as it shows about the birth of the Eucharist or the sacrament, the taking of the eating of the bread and drinking of the wine symbolizes Jesus' body and blood. And this is about betrayal. Betrayal is not done by your worst enemy. It's done by your most intimate of all relationships you have. And when it happens, it stings like a bee, and I'll bet you remember when you were betrayed. Because many of you got angry. Some of you were sad and depressed about it. Some of you wanted to run away. Some of you were confused. And all those feelings are valid. And all these men are going through an emotional crisis, and each one is going through this crisis in a way that depicts their personality. Something we can all relate to. These men are not saints. There's no halo on them. And there's 13 men here. And no one's happy. They're really in groups of 3, which we'll go over. And they called Jesus Yahshua, or Jesus, son of Joseph, and they would speak in Aramaic. In the first group to the left, Bartholomew, James, and Andrew look surprised. But take a look. The bodies are careened to the right. The eyes are focused. The neck so. Same here, and the same here. As well as all lines then go to the right. Let's take a look. Right here, the knife, the bread, and if you follow his tunic, it goes like this. This flows just like a river to go to the right, making your eyes go to the center. So they're aghast at this, which is a typical feeling to have. In the second group, Peter in the center appears angry. John is feminized, looks away in despair, and actually swoons. And the one in question who betrays Christ, Judas, well, he's feigning shock. And I made Judas in shadow, with strong facial features to make him a bit uglier than the other ones, because I didn't like him that much. But even though these figures are turned to the left, the lines still go to the right. Take a look. The hair goes to here, the hand goes out, all this, the hand and the bread all goes to the right with a light sfumato in the background and rectangles. So they're taken aback. In the center, Jesus is resigned and sad by the fact that he knows he's going to get killed, taken by the Romans, captured, and tortured and killed in a most gruesome way. To the right of him is Thomas, James, Greater, and Philip. And they look in disbelief. Where Philip says, in guilt and in agony, and is 2 steps from tears, he says, is it me, my Lord? Am I the one that has caused this betrayal? Is it me? And you look at the anguish on him. In the center, James says, really? This is really going to happen? And Thomas puts his index finger up and says, I doubt this is going to happen, or the doubting Thomas. But all lines go to the left now. Just watch. Take the lines, take them, and it goes right to his forehead. His cloak goes right up here. Actually, to make the blue, I use malachite from Afghanistan and cinnabar from Eastern Europe. So all lines then go to the left. And the last group, Matthew, Jude, and Simon consult each other. He's trying to make sense of this news. Where Jude in the center says, hey, look, I changed my lifestyle for this guy. I gave up everything. My family, my friends, my loved ones, and to follow this preacher. And Simon says, yeah, I agree with you. What's going on? And the same with Matthew. He can't figure it out either. Yet, all the lines go to the left. Take a look. The hands force you to go to the left and to go to the left. I tried an experimental technique using tempera or oil paint on 2 layers dry preparatory ground. When I used a binder, I used egg yolk, which is biological, and linseed oil. But egg yolk is supposed to be used with Fresco. So I wanted to see how this went. Also, you can make triangular lines out to infinity with this. And there's 10 of them here. In a triangle way, also in a square here. Sforza's shields are up here, coat of arms. In today's world, 30 visitors can visit it for 15 minutes, and it plays out just like a medieval movie. And the way why it's popular is because we can all relate to the emotions these people have had, because you've all had them in the last year or two, maybe in a minor way. So that's how we could relate to this. And before, the other paintings of it didn't have this kind of dynamic version at all. They were just people just sitting around. I would show this off to people, hey look, this is what I've done. Or I show them my plans even for a cathedral I've done. I was proud of my work, wanted to tell people about that. They had never seen stuff like this before. In the center, there's Jesus. And he's in a triangle face, this way. Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. And he's open. He's vulnerable. His hand's open, his chest is exposed, which means he's vulnerable. And you have no choice but to feel sorry for the sacrificial lamb. To feel empathy for him. And I use this organic binder. So, experimental, but after a few decades it started to peel and flake off. And by the end of the 15th century it was unrecognizable. And then with 500 years of having 3 meals a day times 500 years in the monastery, the room actually flooded. It had 2 feet of water on it and there was a green mold on it. Excess humidity. Napoleon used it as a stable. And the Allies punched a hole through it, the ceiling and back of it. But it has been restored. It took 21 years by the Italian government. Actually, only 40% of it was recognizable as mine. The rest had to be repainted. And it took $1 million lira back in those days to do that. It's been restored to the best of our abilities. Back in the day, Sforza gifted me a vineyard for doing this. He's liked it so much. So, are there hidden meanings inside the Last Supper, inside my painting? Are there fateful, mysterious clues? Well, according to the book, the Da Vinci Code, written by Dan Brown, and the movie, there is. However, it made $750 million, the movie and the book, so there must be something about this, huh? In this painting, this concerns really the space between Jesus and John. There's a V-type shape here. In the book, it hypothesizes that this void in the shape of a V could be the last chalice or the Holy Grail that Jesus drank from, because there's not one on the table. Or it could be the metaphorical womb of Mary Magdalene. And this is not John, rather it's Mary Magdalene, and that Jesus and Mary are married, and that Mary is either with child or had child, and the descendants from that union has propagated to be in our world today, which is one of the bases of the movie. There's also this silly codex thing here, which isn't real. So at the center of the issue is this a man or a woman? Well, certainly, the hair is long, there's no facial features, and men do not swoon. However, the shoulders are large, and the hands are large. Day one with Verrocchio, I was told that women have 10 to 15% smaller features than men do. Also, I use androgynous figures in my paintings. That I don't have to go searching for both people, I can just make one. Men who look like women, women who look like men. And Mary Magdalene was there. She was there to wash feet. She was a participant. So did Jesus have a wife and children? Was he married? Most biblical scholars say no. He was an itinerant preacher. And if he was to be married and the descendants lived in today's world, they'd have to go through 130 generations in order for that to happen. And as we all know, when people get married, some people can't conceive or they don't want to have children. So that's a pretty far-fetched stretch. Also, the fact that families in social situations and together in Europe did not begin eating together until the 1700s. It's a new phenomenon for men and women to eat together, especially socially. Even with your pilgrims in 1620, the men ate separately from the women. Also, women were not allowed to participate in religious rituals back then and in today's world. We all know in the Mormon Church and the Catholic Church that doesn't exist. Neither in Islam. The men and women pray separately in Islam, and in Buddhism and Hinduism, religion is a man's game. Women aren't really involved with it. Also, that most importantly, I didn't want to pull a fast one on people. I didn't want to play a trick. I was employed to convey specific Christian meanings in this painting. And I'm not going to go being a fraudster or a trickster trying to get some silly conspiracy theory in to promote this painting. I wanted to play it straight. Sforza and I had many discussions about this. And although people are going to come and see it, many church dignitaries, and I want to be employed by people, not known as someone who just gets a silly point across. So I believe in using Occam's razor. That is, the most simple answer is the best answer. Let's drop this sensationalism and hyperbole regarding conspiracy theories. So this comes down to what is art? Art is anything done well in a creative way. And it took years to be able to paint and draw like I did. Got that. So if you want to make your bowl of fruit or sailboat in the water and paint, fine. But stay away from this guy, Bob Ross, and the way of painting, knocking out a landscape painting in 90 minutes. Ross made 30,000 of these paintings. That's not called art, that's called factory work. And this looks like somebody dumped a bowl of whipped cream on some blueberries. So, but your newspaper, the Daily Sun, and the Richmond Academy thinks it's the holy grail, the holy cow if you paint this way. And I say it isn't. Instead, take the time to study something. I would spend hours watching birds flying, or I would spend hours watching water flowing. Why would I do that? Because it's a civil engineer. I needed to make canals, dams, canals, locks, and special waterways for water to flow. So take the time and appreciate your patience. That's what it takes is patience, not just doing something quick and having junky art or kitsch, and do something different with your time. And it takes years to be able to sculpt like this. But in terms of envy and jealousy, which we've all experienced in our life, you can paint what's inside of you, what it feels like, with modern art, which I accept, or regular art about jealousy, we can see this here, or even in the graphic arts. So, with regards to jealousy, which is like a rat gnawing on your foot, one of those ugly, petty feelings, find the fire from within if you want to paint or draw or sketch or sculpt this. This kind of symbolizes it. Listen to your inner voice when you're doing art. Make it count. Make it something special, not just something you sell at an arts and crafts show. Moving on from my soapbox, this is a double helix staircase. Later after my death was made in my plans. And here again, as a civil engineer, I was responsible for making bridges like this, which stood without nails, ropes, or mortars. Here's my idea for a canal lock. And these are my drawings as a civil engineer. So that's why I would take the time to study things for hours. Also, I was nicknamed Mancino, which is lefty in Italian, because I was left-handed and actually ambidextrous. I could write with one hand and draw with another. Let's go figure this out. Actually, I could write a letter with one hand and then draw with the other one at the same time. I also used mirror handwriting when I wrote. And I wrote this way backwards because this was intellectual property when I would write. This protected my work in case I would pass on quickly or again fall into enemy hands. I wanted my work protected. And this is the best way I could do it with mirror handwriting. And also the Inquisition was going on at this time, and we go on to 1820. I didn't want the Catholic Church to have anything to do with what I did, and neither did you. Would you like your notes looked at by the Catholic Church? Well, obviously not. So that's why I wrote this way. These are some of my drawings, which we'll get into. Not only was I a vegetarian, I was also a homosexual man. A group of us like-minded men were arrested in 1476 when I was 24 for this kind of behavior with a young goldsmith. However, the charges were dropped when no one showed up for the trial. Yet this kind of lifestyle was common in Florence and Milan in my time. So common that Florenzer became the German slang for what you call same-sex or gay relationships. And I surrounded myself with beautiful young men to act as my muse, not abuse, like Gian Capriati, who came to me at age 10, I call him Salai, and he would be my partner in life later on. Or Francesco Melzi, who was my personal secretary. But not so. This kind of lifestyle wasn't acceptable. In Venice, 120 miles to the east, where the Doges were in charge of Venice. And I have this up here because you could put, back in the day, a slip of paper in here with the name of somebody who you thought was doing something immoral or tragically wrong, like conning somebody or some kind of serious problem, and the Doges would investigate this. And if it was a really heinous crime, they would walk you across the Bridge of Sighs, which I know that you have seen. 1499, Sforza fell, his empire crumbled. And so I wandered a bit. I went to an Italian town and made a sketch of a city. They were afraid of being invaded by the Turks. So they wanted a map of their city, and I gave them like an aerial perspective of it. And then I came into Rome, Italy, or Rome that day, and I had a new patron. Well, it was Cesar Borgia. And he wanted me to be his general architect and engineer as he commanded the papal army of 5,000. He was the son of Pope Alexander VI. And he was pretty ruthless of a guy, but I had a new patron. After a while, I didn't like him because he was so bloodthirsty. However, in his company, he had a man named Niccolo Machiavelli, who wrote a book about Borgia called The Prince, which is how you get the term Machiavellian. Also, there was an influential monk at that time, Savonarola. He advocated, with a lot of followers behind him, that people should put away their material possessions and to get closer to God, which makes sense to anybody. And he wanted people to burn their religious, their artifacts, their art, their clothes, their jewelry, to get closer to God. And this is how you get the term bonfire of the vanities. 1503 was my second Florentine adventure. When I came, I made plans, sketches and plans to fix the Arno River, so with a series of canals that would lead more into the Mediterranean for trade purposes. Also, at this time, I got an influential commission to paint the Battle of Angahari. This was between Milan and Florence for the control of the northern Italy, about 20 years ago. And I drew sketches of this. It was a giant wall in a monastery, about 23 feet tall and 68 feet long. Well, the wall deteriorated because it was so big and they couldn't make it right. Later on, it was painted in roughly my style 100 years later, which is in a triangle fashion, clockwise. You see the horses on the back of the hoofs going up, and very dramatic with a hazy background. So this did not occur either. So this is me doing my work. And in 1503, a successful Florentine merchant, Francesco Gioconda, who was a silk and cloth merchant, wanted me to paint a portrait of his wife, Lisa. Her name was Lisa del Giocondo, or Gherardini was her maiden name. She was 24 years old and had 5 kids. And he wanted me to paint this portrait of her. Well, of course he could afford it, and actually the painting is very small. Many of you have seen it. It's only 30 inches in height by 21. Made it on poplar wood, and with my trademark styles that you guys know about now. Sfumato in the background, hazy background, roads going to nowhere. She's in a 3/4 turn and in the shape of a triangle, base this way, this way. So here I am painting her, which is what you caught me doing when we first met. And she has perfect symmetry. The golden ratio is basically used in this. We can make 30 triangles inside of her and a dozen quadrilaterals. She has perfect symmetry. That's one reason why she's famous. Another reason why is because of her smile. She has a mysterious, sphinx-like smile which shows contentment, and you're always wondering what she's thinking. She's also famous for being stolen in the Louvre. In 1911, a Louvre employee stole it, and for 2 years. It was thought that Picasso and his friend Apollinaire took it, but not so. It was later recovered. So Mona Lisa, or My Lady Lisa, is now at the Louvre. She's the world's most famous painting. She's worth $2.5 billion, is a national treasure, and the room that she's in is consistently crowded, continuously. She had 7 million visitors a year. And actually, she has her own mailbox you can write to her at. She gets fan mail, love letters, poems, jewelry, and yes, marriage proposals. So, of course, if you were to marry her, you'd end up having a lot of hang-ups and end up getting framed. Actually, I took her into France with me. She's considered an unfinished work, and I kept her with me all the time. And no, she's not a portrait of me. She is Lisa. What do I have in common with Picasso? A lot. We both were talented at an early age. We both impressed our masters so much and finished their paintings early on that they didn't want to paint again. And also, Picasso influenced modern art for the last 7 generations with his abstract art that he made with Matisse in 1910 in Paris, and me with my more natural style that people can relate to for generations by influence. There's all statues of me, but more importantly was Michelangelo. Of course I knew him. He was my contemporary. I was 20 years older than him. His real name is Michelangelo Ludovico Leonardo Simoni. And we were in competition in those days. There was a competition. Florence was very competitive with art in those days. So we worked on a salon together. He was much different than me, though I liked his work and he liked mine. He was more of a prickly personality, a bit tortured, intense, more of a loner. And when he painted the Sistine Chapel, it took him 4 years to do, almost crippling himself on scaffolding and almost going blind. Me, on the other hand, I was easygoing, laid back, and had a lot of unfinished work. When I was 26 in 1478, and for the next 41 years, I would fill multiple notebooks with sketches, ideas, and innovations of my life. Specifically, I'd write about 2 or 3 pages a day, with each page being a different idea. This would go on for decades. Like this, the flight of birds in 1505. I would write in mirror handwriting in Italian and have pictures on the side. Some other things, some other notebooks were different, which we'll get into. But there are between 4,000 to 13,000 pages. The account is not exactly known. And I would work on mechanical ideas as well as anatomy, which I wanted to show you. Here I am drawing, like with the skull. I see the outside of it, but I go inside and take a look at the sinuses, cavities, and everything else of a skull. So these are analytical drawings that I backed up with writing. Actually, after my death, Malcy became my executor of my estate, thank you. And after he died, his family sold it. Who picked this up was Pompeo Leone, an Italian sculptor. He was a collector and curator of my works. And he put them in binders, what they're called codexes, or volumes of work. There's at least 20 of them, plus individual papers. And one of them, they're called codexes again. Codex are notebooks. One of them was the Codex Atlanticus, which is over 1,100 pages of my notes in atlas-sized pages, drawings. They have my drawings and notes in them. These are very famous. They were concerned math, music, weaponry, and botany. These are some of my drawings. Mainly they concern a lot of wheels and how to operate them with gears and things like that, along with the Archimedes screw, which was invented back a long time ago, but we had to be able to get water up to be able to irrigate fields as well as give villages water. Also, I made weaponry, like this giant crossbow that was operated by 3 men who would shoot flaming rocks and bombs. These are ideas for it that I had. Or the idea of something flying like a helicopter. But my ideas did not influence anything in today's world, because my ideas, my notes were kept in private collections for hundreds of years. But I'm going to keep showing you these, like my idea for a rotating air screw, which men would operate this to try and fly. The parabolic sail is fascinating, but this would not fly, it would be too heavy. But these are my ideas for some of these things. As well as the Windsor collection that King Charles owns. It's in a book that's 72 pages. Like I said, 20 surviving notebooks. And this concerns anatomical and artistic drawings and notes. They're in codexes, and I'm going to go into detail on this one. This concerns anatomy, this Windsor collection, as I would go into hospitals and then illegally dissect like old men who have died and strip their skin away and then draw that after they're dead of the muscles, how the ligaments are, and general theories about this, as well as rib cages, feet, and even the brain. So this is how I would draw things like this, showing the sinews and the muscles. These would be good enough to be put in any anatomical textbook in the last couple hundred years, but weren't. This is how detailed they were. When you combine art and words together, they make more of a powerful statement. Or like the heart. Actually, I thought the heart had 3 valves, but it really has 4. Actually, what I did was type in an ox heart, and I would take that and fill it full of liquid wax. The wax would harden, take off the skin, and then make a glass model of it to find out how this works. That goes into another dimension. So this is how interested I was in how the body works. See, art and science are intertwined. They complement each other. They go well together. And if you combine that, it makes a better presentation with what you're showing. More of a 3D way of looking at things. The old man again, the muscles, and the reproductive system, or a baby in uterus with the umbilical cord here, and they're highlighted like this. But when I did something like with botany, I wanted to show you this, because this is like the air flowing through something. This is how light and delicate I thought things in nature were, that it looks like it's floating. The same with their hair that I would do. Actually, these codexes have all been digitalized, and all are in private hands, or state museums, or libraries, or private collections. And individually they're shown off like this with a curator in a specially designed room for these particular papers. Actually, this is Codex Leicester, or Codex Hammer, that was made 1506 to 1513, which shows canals, currents, docks, dams, and military matters. Bill Gates purchased this for $30 million. It's 72 pages, and it has my notes in here, just like this architectural rendering of a house. And it's called Codex Leicester. Or it would have in there my ideas for breathing underwater with a level plane. My ideas for a round church. This is drafting for the church. Or mechanical physics with a pendulum. Or with this wheel. A crank would turn these gears to turn this wheel instead of having a horsepower to human or slaves doing this, walking around. These were technical mechanical explanations that I had. Maybe you've put some of these things together when you're putting your IKEA's furniture together. Something like this. This is how technical this was, right down to the millimeter. My ideas were ahead of the materials at the time. So I had this idea for a parachute. If you jump off a cliff with this, I don't think it would work, actually, because there's not enough surface area. It needs to be more surface area, but it would slow you down, which is the point of it. Or my idea of the codex for the flight of birds. Air currents, air resistance, and wedges. For 18 pages of this. This is why I would study birds. And this idea for a flying machine to look like this, or even I studied bats, to have something that a human could be in a bat contraption that would glide. Actually, reimagined, my friends might have helped me do this, jumping off a castle cliff, a cliff on a castle, whatever, and but not so. But I did do weights and balances. So the Codex Arundel, there are 238 sheets, made from 1480 to 1518. Math, optics, Euclidean geometry, armaments, and military matters. This is how I would draw, and the notes on the side of it. A bridge, a propelled wheel with men walking on it. Or the Codex Madrid, 1490. It had 198 pages, 192, sketches of notes on mechanisms and theoretical mechanics in 1490. See how the things would work together? You need a special blacksmith to make these for you in a special shop, these kind of gears. Let me go back to this and show it like a hammer striking down on something to make something move. I was always testing and experimenting with things, always curious. We use the scientific method. That means I'd observe something, I'd question it, have an hypothesis, I'd experiment, have a conclusion, and have the results. I was one of the first to use this kind of experiment method. Codex Forster. These are on small notebooks, about half the size as regular notebooks. And one of them has 101 sheets, 159 leaves, 194 leaves. You see how small they are? This concerns weights, bells, striking mechanisms, and hydraulics, forestry, and the idea of perpetual motion, having a ball drop to make this go around for a long time. Military matters, like a cannon that would shoot out multiple volleys. Ideas for a fort. When you have a lot of angles on a fort, it makes it easy to defend and hard to attack, just like in today's world with the Pentagon or other places. My idea for mechanical knight, I had gears inside a armed suit of armor that could move if wound up, and the arms would go back and forth. Here reimagined, it would look something like this. Here I am in my studio. And you can see when I get the idea for snail shells on a kid's head, it makes it look like it's floating on air, a lot lighter than air. My idea is here. Or the camera obscura. The light would go into a large box from a pinhole. In the back of it, there would be a screen set up and it would appear upside down. This all fascinated us. My idea for this. And I have 200 books. So I was not, people say, you think I was dyslexic? I don't think so. These books are expensive. I wouldn't want to pay for something that I couldn't read. There's 18 of my finished paintings exist today, and I had this incredible thirst for knowledge. It was insatiable. I wanted to know everything about everything. I wanted to know how the body works, how things work, all the time. Can you take me higher is what I wanted to know. I wanted to learn about it all. I had this idea of taking an apple and just biting into it and having all the juice run down onto me because I wanted to be that like life. I wanted to get involved in it. That's how I strong feeling about this. Is self-portrait I made of myself. I had this idea for an artillery spear that could be shot, or the idea for a tank which had cannons on the side of it. Here, I showed it to Sforza. Here I am. He wanted a military guy, he got one. Well, here's my idea for a tank with my drawing, the inside of it with wheels here. Or men inside of it making it move, with cannons shooting anywhere you want to. You'd be protected and you could harm at the same time. That's an interesting idea, protection and harm at the same time. Or my idea for a catapult. Or my idea for a ship with a huge claw on it that would claw at other ships and destroy them. Or my idea for with a contraption drawn by horses that would have blades on them, much like Ben-Hur did. Actually, I got these ideas from a military architect, Leonardo Tecola, who lived at the same time I did. There were military engineers in my time in every single country: France, Britain, Germany, Portugal, Belgium, in England. All had to have military engineers because you just don't want to have just men running at each other in a war with swords and shields. You need some advantage. You have an advantage, then you win. That's why we were employed. So I took his ideas, but he's not famous for doing this because he didn't leave any notes for it. Well, if you don't leave any notes, then you don't know how it works. You don't know how to build it, you don't know how to take care of it, nor do you know how to make it in 3D, real life. Many people don't know that I also designed a lot of rock album covers, like this, for the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper. I was with Springsteen and Born to Paint, Fleetwood Mac, as well, Da Vinci, as well as with the Boys in Liverpool. Here I'm crossing Abbey Road. And I wanted to recommend the most kick-butt rock group in the world. This group will really rock your socks off. That's right, the Carpenters. With the iconic chick pickup line, "Why do birds suddenly appear every time you are near?" So, 1490, I got involved in doing something. Remember I said the Renaissance was a rebirth of knowledge? Well, Vitruvius in 30 BC had this idea of putting a sketch of a man inside a square in a circle and see if it would fit. Well, a square and a circle are perfect shapes. And a man is perfect except in the way he acts. So, I wanted to do measurements and see if I could do this myself. And yes, the Vitruvian man is what I made. And it all lines up with the golden ratio, as you can see. It took me years to perfect this, so a man can fit like this. This is one of the iconic symbols of the Renaissance, is this, and Michelangelo's David. This. It's all about man being in charge of the world. Not. It's about him and the way we feel about things. And that's called humanism. So this is my idea here, a rotating air screw here. My ideas for a canal lock or of storming a castle. But I got these ideas from Roberto Beltrio, who lived before me. He had this idea of storming a castle, the idea of blades on wheels, cannons, a military ship that was a fighting machine, or the idea of a submarine that had propulsion down here with cranks you could do it. I don't know how you breathe though in this. And as well as Vitruvian Man was being worked on by Francesco Martini. So I took some of the ideas that people had, but I put notes with them on how they work. I had a new master, a new patron though, when I turned 63 in 1515. He was Francis I and lived off in Paris. So, in order to see him and to be with him, I had to move. So, myself, Salai, my partner, Melzi, and Rodrigo, our servant, helped with mules, and it took 400 miles to go from northern Italy to Paris. It took 2 months to do this on mules. I took everything with me. My easels, my paintbrushes, Mona Lisa, or Lisa at the time, and I took all my books, all my possessions, and we traveled by mule. That is across the Alps. So Lisa went across the Alps with me, just to be with him. I was his premier painter, engineer, and architect. Francis I, he was a young king, and he had me live at his summer palace, the Chateau de Clos-Luce, that you can visit today. I spent the last 4 years of my life there, and I was taken care of wonderfly by him. He liked me a lot, and I was treated very well. This is him and I getting together. He liked my ideas. He had a lot of energy, was interested in them. And he let me do whatever I wanted to do. Paint, draw, sketch, whatever it is that I had a feeling for, he let me have it. I gave him an idea about making a modern city called Roma. He wanted a royal palace. He wanted something spectacular. He wanted something on water. So I built him a palace on, actually I had designed a palace on water for him. I redirected rivers and had windmills on it for energy, and had animal stables, cobbled streets, and prefabricated homes for an entire modern city. This was never built, but this was my idea for him. Also, I was into perfume. See, it was really hard to take a bath back in those days. Imagine that, you had to get water from some stream, bring it into your house, heat it up, take a bath, and then get rid of the water. So instead, we just use perfume. It covers up everything. So I would take flowers and extract the scents from them, and special decanters that rich people can wear. This is how I work. This is my room in Clos-Luce. You can see my style of painting in a triangle fashion, sfumato in the background with geometric figures. Same here. This is where I work. You can visit this today, and I'd be a liar if I told you that I was happy in my later years, because I wasn't. I was running out of energy. I was sad and depressed because I couldn't get back to the things I left behind. We have that feeling, it's called regret. All of us have that at some point in our lives about something, especially in older age. I just couldn't get back to it. You can visit Clos-Luce. This is my bedroom. Actually, this is something true of me. This is the way I looked and I played the lyra here. This is the way I would dress, with a beard like this. And what is this doing on here? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Well, they are named after Florence Renaissance artists. Myself, Michelangelo, Raphael, and Donatello. Actually, Donatello influenced Verrocchio, and Raphael was influenced by me. But instead of having these cartoon characters, tell kids who would watch these kind of cartoons, tell them instead what we did. But that probably won't get through to a 10-year-old. So instead, tell them about the ninja thing. Have them go to beginning karate or beginning taekwondo and have them learn that instead of watching cartoons. Or show them what the Da Vinci word is made out of. My name is used for a probe that will visit Venus in a few years. Da Vinci School in Dallas. Robotic surgery. Da Vinci robotic, one here in the villages. And robotic software. Let's stay away from the 3 C's in our society: conspiracy theories, cartoons, and junky art or crappy art. Let's stay away from that. Let's move on. At close loose, you can also see my idea for artillery weapons, a water wheel, a paddle boat. My idea for underwater, it was designed for the tank. Kids can actually play on this out in close loose. It's a family adventure to go there. Or my idea for the cart that I told you about way back. The self-propelled cart, or my idea for a flying machine. The propulsion is good to flap the wings. This would be too heavy and the air resistance is not right. But it's a wonderful idea. Or an idea of a mechanical lion, or walking on water, displacing water with these kind of ideas. Or you can go to Da Vinci museums. There's a number of them around the world. This is a 100% interactive museum where you can actually turn the gears that I designed, or make the models I designed, or use software to make a paddle boat here, and you can get involved with it at a level that you can understand. And there's 3 of them in Italy, one in Milan, one in Florence, and then there's one in Belgium. There's also a traveling exhibit that goes around. This is in the Henry Ford Museum. It's there right now. They have 65 inventions of mine and 20 of my fine art studies. These are some of the things that I designed, the tank and other things. These are traveling exhibits that go around the country as well as go around other places in Europe, etc. I died in the year 1515 in May at 67 years old. I died of complications following a stroke. I died in the arms of Francis I. It was very touchy because he cared for me. I liked him a lot, like my son. My last words were, I have offended God and mankind by doing so little with my life. I am buried here in a chapel at Close Loose. I directed my own funeral, had ideas for it, and here it is right here. I just found my DNA on one of my, in modern day life, on a portrait I've done of a holy child. And I used chalk and I used my fingers, so they found my skin on it and they were able to trace my ancestry back to the Tuscan region that I grew up in. What goes around comes around to today's world. So that's me, Leonardo da Vinci, the ultimate Renaissance man, artist, inventor, genius, and a man for all seasons. And thank you so much. Thank you.